do think our most important relationship, and I've thought this for some time, is our relationship with China. It is obviously a huge country with a huge economy, and we're very dependent on each other. And they are, in fact, kind of moving into an area where we have lost interest. I think it's too bad about the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the structure that kind of, they are moving into the vacuum. And I do think that generally our relationship with a country that we have disagreements with, as well as areas where we can agree. So we can explore that, but I think that's very important. I do think our relationship with Russia is important. They are going through an identity crisis, and they're trying to figure out what their post-Cold War world is, and they do have influence, and they are disrupting a lot of. They would like to see the European Union fall apart. They would like to see NATO fall apart, which frankly is why I'm troubled by some of the statements that President Trump has said in terms of also not being sure about where that's going. So those are major areas. I do think we are very concerned about cyber. I think those are kind of more functional, and nuclear proliferation. And I'm very sorry that all of a sudden climate change has kind of been relegated to the earth is flat. So I think that it's very important for us to do that. But I can also point out that having the Mexico issue is very serious, because our more complex relationships actually are with Mexico, because they're domestic and foreign. And they also, and I'm saying, if the problem is migration and immigration, they have said that there are a lot of immigrants and refugees coming from Central America, which they have been stopping, which they will stop stopping. And so I think, I mean, I can name pretty much every county's been heard from. There are issues all over the world, but I do think, and to get back to one that does concern all those issues, is North Korea, because the Chinese need to help us on that. It is a proliferation issue. And then finally, as of today, we now have put Iran back into the center of issues and how we deal with them. And if I may say so, Condi, I can't visualize you storming into the briefing room in the middle of a briefing and saying, I'm putting Iran on notice, the way that the National Security Advisor did 2 hours ago.
As I said, let's get policy back out to the departments and out to the agencies and out of the White House. I agree completely on that. Look, your list is my list. I would just underscore on North Korea that we have somebody there. Madeline once said about his father that he was nuts, I believe was the technical term that you used. Yes.
Yeah, and a pervert.
And yes.
Diplomatically speaking, I think we go right to batshit crazy.
Yeah. Now, that was his father. That was Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-un is, if anything, swimming in an even shallower part of the gene pool. And so he is far plus. And it is very troubling that the North Koreans seem to be making considerable progress on their nuclear program. We've always known that they've harvested the fuel. You tried to do something about their missile program, as I did. That's becoming more advanced. And somewhere along the way, maybe this president, maybe the next president, is going to face the prospect of a North Korea with the capability to threaten the United States. Not South Korea, not Asia, but the United States. And so I actually think this is, from my point of view, in urgent need of a strategy. Madeline is right about the Chinese, although I found in trying to get the Chinese involved in this through what we call the six-party talks to deal with North Korea, they sometimes have less leverage with the North Koreans than we think, and it's because the North Koreans are in on the joke. The Chinese are not going to do anything so severe to North Korea that it collapses the regime, because they worry more at this point about the collapse of the regime than they do about the nuclear problem. And somehow we've got to get our interests aligned with the Chinese on this issue. The Russians can be helpful on North Korea as well. And so I put that at the top of the list, but that's not to say that I don't agree that the relationship with China or the relationship with Russia are important. And we've got some relationships to rebuild in the Middle East with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, with Israel, where we're in a fairly rough patch with those. So we've got a lot of work to do around the world.
Is there one issue that you think is paramount, each of you, very briefly?
I vote for North Korea.
North Korea.
I think it's
I do too.
You do too. And
Mainly because we are dealing with somebody that is not a rational actor on the other side, and there are pressures on him. And I agree with you. The Chinese, we hope they have influence, but they don't.
So what to do there? Like send in James Bond? What do we do? That's my preference.
well, the first thing is I think you do have to try to align our interest
Of
with
the-
those of the Chinese, and that means having a serious conversation about whether we can really tolerate this nuclear North Korea with a nutcase at the helm
Right.
that will threaten the United States, and saying to them in no uncertain terms, no, we can't. Now, what are we going to do about it? Because if the Chinese were actually to bring all their leverage to bear on North Korea, then the North Koreans might have to make other choices.
And South Korea doesn't play a role there.
No.
They've got their own set of issues.
Well, they do have their own issues, but South Korea obviously is most vulnerable if the North were to try and retaliate in some fashion
right.
against the South. So it's a complex problem, but I just think it's the most urgent.
So let's talk about the role of women and about your